Okay, guys, Nicholas Rosenberg here, Cult Media Studio in the downtown LA Arts District. Today, we are joined and blessed to have journalist Carmen Marquez.
Hey!
So good morning.
So much. What an honor to be here.
Good morning, buenos dias.
Buenos dias.
Okay, so your journey starts in Arizona.
It does. It goes back to Arizona.
Okay.
I am a Yuman. I'm from Yuma, Arizona. Born there, raised in Yuma until I was 10 years old. It's a really small border town next to San Luis Rio Colorado, Sonora, in Algodones, Baja California. Back when I was born, nothing much was happening there, right? To this day, we have like one Jack in the Box and a couple like Carl's Jr. So that's how big it is, no? But
Right.
It's my hometown. That's where my family's at. And I'm super blessed to be from Yuma. Yeah.
And if I'm correct, Yuma is where the lechuga, the lettuce is.
Yes.
Okay.
It's the capital, la capital de la lechuga.
Oh, wow. Okay. Did you ever do any agricultural work?
I actually, my parents did. My parents did. My grandfather did too. At some point, I was looking for a job. I was looking, and I did sign up to work in agriculture and in Los Campos de Lechuga in the lettuce fields. But I made it up to like that morning, and that was it. I was like, yeah, like it was about waking up every day at 3 a.m, waiting for a bus to pick you up. Just like it's really exhausting, and it's a heavy lift for everyone. So I just decided it probably wasn't for me.
Right. Okay. So at some point you went to Mexico.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
Yeah. So growing up in Yuma, I have two older brothers. One is Nestor and Diego. And so my oldest brother, he was getting involved in gangs and he was becoming a cholo. He was around 15. So it was like about that time where the influence was pretty heavy. And he started getting called by the cops, going to juvie. And my mother, she was like, we can't let this happen. And they just took us to Mexico. They took us to Michoacan, Uruapan, Michoacan. That was like our initial point in Mexico. So we went from this small border town to Uruapan, Michoacan, Mexico. And we went from being this really like small unit of a family. Like I was raised with my parents and they're still married to this day, to then moving to Mexico and living with my grandparents. So it was some sort of family separation. It was like a split. It was difficult emotionally, but eventually I don't know, like I feel like it was the best thing that could have happened to us. There was definitely—
How old were you at that point?
I was 10 years old.
Wow. Okay.
I was 10. And when I look at little girls at 10 years right now, I'm like, whoa, like they took my parents too fast. But it was the best thing because I was also exposed to real Mexico, right? From like the mercados and culture to cartels and how unsafe it was to be in Mexico, right? Like back in the day, we're talking about 20 years ago, it was La Familia Michoacana. It was a lot of narco, and they started like kidnapping and hanging heads in the streets. So going from a small town in Yuma, Arizona, where nothing happened, right? It was a playground for everybody, to Uruapan, where I was seeing, all these like, well, I never personally witnessed one of those heads, but it was in the newspapers all over, no? And Uruapan is still kind of like a small city. So,
Okay. Yeah, I did a case where they said the prison gang teamed up with La Familia.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a very interesting case. All right. So that means you did high school and college, university in Mexico?
So when I got to Mexico, I did some elementary. So I think it was 4th, 5th grade, 6th grade, junior high, high school. At some point in high school, like I always wanted to be back with my parents. So I came back to Yuma. I think I did sophomore year at Yuma High School in Yuma. But then I went back to Mexico, finished high school, and then I started like looking at what I could do. No, I've always been like, now I know that I have ADHD, but I've always been like highly like, I don't know, I follow my curiosity. So I went to school to be a dietitian for a bit. It was like 7 months. I didn't like it. I went to law school for like 9 months. it was too corrupt in Mexico. So I was like, I'm not going to be part of this. But I was still like always really intrigued by politics, society, protests. I was always observing and always really active, no? And then from law school, I went to culinary arts.
Oh, wow.
And you know what? Like, God bless my parents, because they let me do all of that and they supported. They were like, at some point, my mom was concerned. She was like, you know, what's wrong with Carmen? Like, she can't get it together. And then by that time, my brothers had finished dental school in Mexico.
Right. Okay.
They're both dentists right now. And yeah, like all my family decided like, we're going to go back. We're going to go back to Yuma. We're going to go back to Arizona. The guys are over with school. Carmen, you can stay in Mexico or you can decide whatever you want to. And I was like, I'm obviously not going to stay in Michoacan sola. You know, around that time they were, again, kidnapping a lot. And by that time I was living in Morelia, Michoacan.
Okay.
So Uruapan, Michoacan was only 3 years. And then the rest, 8 years was in Morelia, Michoacan, which is the capital of Michoacan.
Right.
So yeah, I didn't stay. So I didn't finish any career. And then came back to Yuma, Arizona. I was 22 years old. And in Mexico, the way that my parents had done things is they wanted us to finish school and then they would allow us to work. And that's kind of how it works for some people in Mexico, right? Like you really can't get a job until you're done with a career. In the US, I feel like it's the opposite. No, you can start working and then you build your own self, and that's how it works. So by 22, I come back to Yuma, Arizona. And I remember feeling like, oh crap, like what is this? I don't have any friends. I've never had an internship. I've never volunteered anywhere. I don't have a degree. I don't have a driver's license. I don't have credit cards. I don't have anything. And so I have to start from scratch. And, you know, but with a bunch of blessings because my family's there and we're all trying to like build again. So I went from, again, applying to work in the fields. And I was able to do that because one of, you know, a really good family friend is the lead of one of those fields, and she gave me that opportunity. But again, I really didn't work in the fields. That didn't work. I went to like Yuma Regional Medical Hospital to apply for this internship to give like recipes to elderly people. I was like, what am I doing with my life? And at some point, I just like stumbled across local news, and I remember thinking, okay, this means I'm a little bit bored. And I came across this really small 5-minute community segment from Telemundo. It was like their local Telemundo. And I saw that they had some grammatical errors. And coming from Mexico, I was like, I'm still like super prideful of like being Mexican American. So I was like, how are they not respecting grammar and accent, los acentos? So I immediately just emailed the news director. Again, I had no knowledge about how a newsroom works or anything like that. So I sent an email and I'm like, hi, I'm Carmen Marquez. I come from Mexico, like super naive. Like, I don't think I've ever sent like a professional email before. And I'm like, I saw you have a segment in Spanish. Is there a way I can help? And, you know, I wasn't expecting a reply. I got a reply. The news director is asking if I wanted this for a college credit. And I'm thinking, oh, like I'm not even in college yet. But I just want to do something. And that's what I told him. Like, I know, like, this is not for college. I just got back from Mexico and I want to, you know, put my skills to something or do something. And he was like, okay. So we set up an interview, come into the office, and I meet Ernesto Romero, who then became my first boss, my first news director. And, you know, and we hit it off and he tells me, okay, Carmen, let's put you to work. You'll translate from like Fox and CNN to Espanol, right? So I was like pretty fast in that. Again, like I'm new to a city. I'm back in this country and I'm like a little sponge. I'm like, it's either this, I learn to hop on this boat and figure out how to live here, or I get into this deep depression, no? Because I had nothing. And I start translating. And then I was in a newsroom with a team of journalists. Again, like how journalism works is you go to these schools, journalism schools across the country, and then you start in a really small market. No, they'll go to Yuma, Fresno, Colorado, and so I had a lot of colleagues or coworkers who were like Columbia graduates, Berkeley, NYU. And I remember thinking like, okay, we're in the same place, but I did see some sort of discrimination, but I was like, I don't care. We're going to be fine. I'm just, I'm working. I'm trying to work. I'm trying to get a job. I'm trying to like become someone. So some colleagues would be like, okay, Carmen, do you know how to use a camera? And I was like, no, but I can learn. Okay, can you get us an interview? Okay, vamos. And that's how I started learning. Carmen, do you know how to edit? No clue. Show me and I'll do it right now. Carmen, do you know how to voiceover? Yes. Sometimes I would be like, yes, I do. And I didn't, and I'll just figure it out. Like there's YouTube. Come on. So that's how it all started. One of those days, the anchor for that segment, for that 5-minute segment, she called in sick. And even though it was Yuma, Arizona, they had nobody else who spoke Spanish. So the news director and the assignment editor, Eduardo Santiago, they're like, well, Carmen can do it. But I remember like back then it was really funny because I was a 22-year-old from Mexico. I had never done my makeup, okay? Like no makeup, I've never done my hair. And I was always like just natural. So the news director tells me, okay, we have 3 hours. We're going to take you to the salon and they're going to fix you, okay? And I remember like I come back and I'm like, wow, like who is this? I had like it looked like a wig because I have a lot of hair. And then and I had makeup and they were like, okay, you're gonna do this 5-minute segment. Are you ready? I was like, yes. I always say yes to everything. Learning not to do that.
Right.
but
Boundaries.
Yeah, boundaries. Thank you. But yeah, and that happened. I did the newscast, that 5-minute segment. I know perfect Spanish, so they liked it. And everyone was in shock, like including my family, because they know me as a shy kid. Like I've always been more into like, more introspective, more like the emo kid. And at this point, they're like, what is she doing in television? This is a small market, but it was still like, hey, everyone in Yuma and San Luis, Mexicali, and the region is watching you now. So that happens. The next day, the news director is like, hey, we really liked what you did. And then I think I became a volunteer, an official intern, right?
Okay.
They started paying me.
Nice.
And then I think it was like a month and a half later, they call me, the news director calls me to the office and he's like, Carmen, we really like what you're doing. We like that you're contributing so much to the newsroom. We're going to start a 5 and 10 p.m. newscast Monday through Friday, and we want you to be the anchor and producer. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is going to be my first job ever. And yes, it was my first job ever.
Wow.
I guess we all struggle with imposter syndrome. And at that point, I was like, I'm not ready for this. I'm 22 years old. Everyone in this newsroom has a college degree. I don't. I just got here from Mexico. And news director was like, you're all right. Like, you don't need to finish college. Like, by that time, I was already like back in community college because they didn't take any of my credits.
Right.
So I had to start again. And that was so frustrating because school has always been difficult for me in a sense that, like, if I like the subject, I'll hyper focus. If I don't, I just can't make myself learn. And not until last year I learned that was ADHD. But and now I will take medication here and there if I need to focus. But yeah, so I accepted that job. And so I was doing full-time anchor producer role, full-time community college. My boss kind of like allowed me to do both. And yeah, and that was my first job. I'm so proud of myself for being able to do that, for accepting that role, because I could have easily been like, nope, this is not for me. I'm not ready. And I know that a lot of students do that nowadays, where because they don't have the degree or because they feel like they don't have the experience, they don't throw themselves into this industry. But I think that's having that curiosity is prime, no? Is like a big foundation for growing in this industry and for having a role, whatever it is that you guys want to do. But that's how it started. I started leading a group of reporters who had gone to journalism school as I was in community college going to like English and sociology 101. A lot of people like loved me for that. And a lot of people also were like, she's not fit for this. She's not fit for that.
Haters.
A little bit, yeah. And I guess like at some point it was the first Trump administration and I'm in this small border town and I noticed that there's the need for resources and information. So I kept anchoring, but I started making these immigration forums in the community, like in the Catholic churches. I didn't even know how to do this. But again, this is me, my brain. I'm like, okay, let me get an activist, a congressman, some radio stations together with like el padre de esta iglesia, and then we'll make announcements on television, and then we'll have people come here with all their dudas, all their questions. So that starts happening. It becomes successful. We start airing this on Telemundo, on the different radio stations. And I never imagined like it would have a big impact, right? For me, it was like, that's the need right now. Like people need to have their questions answered. They need to stop hiding because they were really just like staying home and, being raised and being from this border town. Like I immediately noticed these patterns, right? Like I know when people cross the border, they come back. When they leave on the weekends, people were just like static. They were hiding. And this was like the first or second month of the Trump administration back then. And so yeah, we start doing these forums. And I invite Radio Campesina, which is a radio station that is very like community driven, pro-immigrant, comes from the Cesar Chavez Foundation, very connected to the UFW. And I thought they were local. Right. I thought it was like a Yuma thing, like a Yuma radio station. It turns out they're national. And after one of these panels, they call me and they tell me like, Carmen, like, we would like for you to host one of our shows. We're based in Phoenix, but we're national. And I'm like, I don't know. Like I didn't hesitate. I said, yes, let's go. Let's do this. So they offered me this job on a Monday. Next Monday, I was already in Phoenix. Wow. And yeah, it's been a lot of curiosity fueled by this desire to serve the community. And also to challenge all these limiting beliefs that have been instilled in me as a Latina, as a woman, right? Like I don't like feeling like I can't do something because I'm a woman. Or I remember my dad told me this, and I love my parents, but my dad, when I left, he was like, how are you doing this? No, de esta casa no te vas hasta que te cases. You're not leaving this house until you're married. And I thought like, I never want to get married. Like, come on. But that happened. My mom stops talking to me for like a couple months, and eventually they supported after they saw that everything was okay. It came from a place of fear, I know. But yeah, so I go to Phoenix and I start working with Radio Campesina. Did I know how to host a show? No. Did I know how to manage the controls in a radio station? No. But I learned, right?
So this was radio.
This is radio now.
Okay.
So yeah.
Well, you have a radio voice.
I do?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I like to do radio and TV, and just right now I'm not doing any of that. I'm doing like more production. But it's been a ride, attorney. Like it's been a ride.
Okay, so after Campesino on the radio, you got back into telejournalism? Yeah,
so I'm in Phoenix. I'm living in Phoenix. I'm doing this show called Punto de Vista. It's in Spanish. It's with Radio Campesina. And everyone's reaction is like, how do you leave television? And how are you going to stop anchoring to go to radio? And it's community radio. What are you doing? In my mind, I'm like, I've always tried to follow like a line and a vision of like what sits well with me and what aligns with me. Even when I didn't even have the words to articulate this feeling, right? But at the moment, I was like, it's really vain to just be sitting in front of a prompter, reading lines and looking pretty every single day. I was like, it's not fulfilling. I'm ready for whatever's next. No, so for me, it was the step to take. Move to Phoenix, do radio, and the first couple months, like my programming director Maria Barquin, who I love very much, she gave me this opportunity, and I wasn't good. Like I was not good. I remember, like, imagine trying to coordinate, like, first of all, you need to produce the show. This was a 25-minute show with topics like immigration, politics, health, noticias, right? So I would have to produce, so invite people to be en cabina conmigo, like in the studio with me. I would also have to focus on like hosting, moving everything so that I knew when commercials came in. And so it was like a whole technique that I didn't know how to do. But okay, ahí estaba Carmen. Like there was Carmen. Goddamn, things I get myself into. And but I was doing what I wanted. I was serving the community. I was connecting with a lot of the undocumented communities in Phoenix, in Arizona. Back then, they had just come out of this movement with Arpaio.
The sheriff.
The Sheriff Joe Arpaio. It was a community that was really hurt by all the racial profiling, by another, law or legislation that allowed like, some sort of racial profiling. So I started getting involved. And as I was doing this, I was going to school, Walter Cronkite School of Journalism. And that was really exciting. It was like splitting my time. I remember I didn't even have time to eat. My boss, Maria Barquin, she would give me her salad. She'd be like, eat something before you go to school. So it was like tackling and hustling and doing everything. And as I'm doing this, I start this Instagram show on my Instagram, right? It's called Talking Latino. It's a little like 25-minute conversation with Latinos across the country. And it was just me on Instagram inviting people. So like Latinos in politics, Latinos in art, in production, in music. And I went from having like, very community-driven activists to like big journalists, like Maria Elena Salinas. And I started getting noticed. So sometimes I would have like 5 views. And then sometimes it was like 500 views. And this is back when Instagram had the like Instagram lives that were only there, that you could keep for 24 hours.
Right.
So this is like, I'm 31, so it's like 8 years ago. And so I'm super excited doing this. And Telemundo Network, a producer, Adriana Rodriguez, she reached out. And she tells me, Carmen, we really like what you're doing on your Instagram. Like, we would like to hear more about what you do. Can you start giving us content? And I remember I started working with Telemundo Nacional. As I was doing Radio Campesina, I gave them like small stories, right? For their Thursdays, they had a noon show. And it was around like undocumented communities in Phoenix, living in a border town. Like all these issues that happen amongst like Latinos at the border, in Arizona, in Texas. So I started giving them material. And then they were preparing for the election year. I think, they were preparing for election year. And so did that for them. At first, I don't think they paid me at first. I think I did like free work for like a couple months. Until one of my homies was like, what are you doing? Like, this is a network. They should be paying you.
Right.
And I was like, okay, how do you ask for money? How do you do this? Then they called me from Univision Nacional, from the network. And they're like, Carmen, we're interested in having you on for a show that like, the producers start producing, they start doing their thing and they start thinking big, like, who do you want to have on during election year? So they reach out again and I'm thinking, this is insane. Like, I'm working in a local radio station. I'm going to school. And just because of this Instagram live show, I get noticed and I have 2 networks asking me if I want to like contribute or work with them. So I remember telling one of my professors, Valeria Fernandez, who is a really, really like good friend of mine and someone who's been like by my side in this whole like process of journalism. She's a documentarian too, and she's in Phoenix. So anyway, I tell her like, Valeria, like they're offering me a job, but I'm in Phoenix and I need to finish school. Like again, right? This question of school. And I speak with Valeria and a couple other professors, Vanessa, Ruiz, and they're like, Carmen, like, no, like you take this job and then you can consider coming back to school whenever you can in the future.
Right.
So that's what I did. At some point I left the Radio Campesina, took a little 3-month break, and got ready for election year. And I took a retainer or a job. It was a 1-year contract with Telemundo Nacional. So yeah, that it's been feels like a blink of an eye. Like it's happened so fast. I never thought this would happen. I never saw myself doing television or news or radio, but it's all just happened. And I think I've also been a really good, ¿cómo se dice? Like a vessel for allowing things to happen. I'm open to receiving opportunities, and I'm also really open to my curiosity and to learning. And you know, to this day, like I wish I could have just finished school, but because I don't have the time for it, I you know, every time I'll go to like a university or a college or a workshop, I tell kids or students, you know, if you can, and if it's, you know, in your lane, finish school. Like, please do so, especially if you have support from your parents or, you know, a family that has that ability to support you. But if you don't, you can always do what I'm doing right now. Like, I'll hire a professor and can you give me a 4-week workshop of Congress, of the judiciary system? Like, I want to learn. Like, I don't want to, like, I've never wanted to be like this person who's just on TV because of charisma, you know? Like, I really want to know what I'm saying and what I'm talking about. So yeah, that's been the journey.
So you mentioned the election. Now, were you covering the election? Were you embedded in a campaign?
No. So I was doing young Latino demographics. So young Latino demographics and documented communities. So anything that had to do with that sector, I would cover, and they would bring me on to like the first Democratic debate, second Democratic debate. And whenever they had like tables of analysis, I would be there alongside like Ana Navarro and Maria Elena Salinas and like these big like news journalists. And I would just give them the information of what's happening in the ground, what's happening, what are young Latinos thinking, what are the undocumented communities thinking, you know, what do they expect from their politicians, from their representatives. So that's what I did with Telemundo for about a year. And that was my first move to Los Angeles when I started working with Telemundo. So I've been in LA for, I think, almost 6 years now.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
And what are you doing now? Are you still with the big networks?
No. I was with Telemundo for a year, and it was only a 1-year contract. After that, I think 2 months later, the pandemic hits. That happens, and I thought to myself, I want to go independent, but it was just, I feel like it was too early on in my career to go independent. So as I was looking for, you know, freelance gigs and stuff, I applied. One of my really good friends, Esmeralda Cisneros, was working in the assignment desk at Telemundo 52 here in LA. And she told me like, hey, like there's like a freelance writer gig for the weekends. Can you do that? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. Like, please. Like, so I sent my resume, sent my application to the news director, to Ruben Keuseyan, who was the news director back in the day. And he called me into his office and he was like, what? He's like, what are you thinking? Like, I don't want you to be a writer. He's like, I want you to be on air. Like, what? So, but I had always been a little hesitant of anchoring. Again, I like to be on the street. I like to be on the go. And but then this was a great opportunity. He offered for me to be an anchor on the weekends, Noticiero Fin de Semana. So it was I think it was a 6 and 11 p.m. newscast on the weekends, and then to become a reporter Monday through Wednesday.
Right.
So I thought about it, and I was like, okay, I need to take this opportunity. It's a great place to get to know Los Angeles, to get to know the community. and to sharpen my skills, working with this like big, big corporation that was Telemundo 52 and NBC4. So,
Oh, so you worked with Univision as well?
no. With Univision, I never worked
Okay.
with them. Yeah. Because Telemundo did the first offer, like I just stayed loyal to Telemundo. So,
Right.
and they're still like an amazing family, an incredible family. I signed a 3-year contract with them.
Okay.
And I don't know, I owe a lot to Telemundo because they gave me this opportunity after not having much experience like in the anchor desk, like I did in a small market, but I didn't have that experience to cover breaking news or the car pursuits that happen like every weekend. So there I was like, vamos en vivo, estamos aquí viendo un vehículo que va a la velocidad oscilando de esto, otro. I remember that was so challenging at first. And then it was like, okay, this happens every weekend. You start getting the vocabulary and stuff. So yeah, I was with Telemundo 3 years, but I knew I was only going to be there 3 years because I wanted to do long format documentary, and also I want to do content that my generation or that our generations are consuming, and everything is online nowadays, right? So there's a part of me that's like, okay, it sounds really good to have this television job, but in the long run, TV is probably going to be gone in 10 years. So I should probably go with what everyone else is doing. So I left TV a year ago, finished my contract, left in really good terms. Everyone was like, what are you doing? But okay, they were like, okay, like get it out of your system. And I'm like, no, like I'm staying in this. I really like what I'm doing. So I'm currently doing multimedia journalism, right? So that means I'm doing production, I'm doing writing, reporting for documentary episodes on podcast. I am producing for some news outlets in Mexico City, in London, and what else?
London, that's Channel 4?
Channel 4 News London.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm currently also working on a production for, they have a documentary series called Unreported World. And, I can't talk about like what we're going to be doing, but it has to do with all the work that I've done in the past, right? And Los Angeles. So, yeah.
Let me ask you this. It sounds like reporter Carmen is very close to you versus anchor Carmen.
Yes.
Okay, tell me about reporter Carmen.
Reporter Carmen is on the ground in the front lines because I have that connection with community and I've built that. And gaining trust from the community is not a thing to be handled easily or, it comes with a huge responsibility. It takes, being seen in this light of respect and also like dignifying their stories because they have voices, but it's about amplifying their voices, right? Amplifying their needs. So I don't know, it just fills me with pride and it fills me with passion when I talk about reporting because I get to connect. I get to have this connection with people. And that's something that I personally like. I can't do over an email. I can't do over the phone. And I can't do it from the anchor desk, right?
Right.
The anchor desk will give you some sort of, recognition, visibility. But at the moment, it wasn't fulfilling for me. And I just thought, like, I can't stay in the desk. I have to be out. Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this. Can you be the reporter and then anchor that? That's what you're doing now, right?
Not really. So
Okay.
I've currently been away from television for a year and I haven't anchored anything or done any reporting. I did do like an elections project last year in October, but it was online. It was articles for Palabra and NAHJ, which is National Association of Hispanic Journalists.
Okay.
And we gathered with Carmen Valencia and Cora Cervantes, some really incredible and brilliant journalists, and we covered some battleground states. And we did a lot of radio, local radio. It was Radio Campesina. It was Radio Bilingüe. It was local NPRs. It was these articles for Palabra. So we just covered with a lot of grassroots news organizations or, newspapers. So that was really interesting. But no, I haven't done anything on camera. And I've been getting like a little bit of like the cosquilla of like, maybe it's time to go back because not back to TV full time, no, but maybe a show, having my own thing. Like, why not?
Right.
In the future, maybe for the future, near future, I don't know.
So you're publishing your stuff on Instagram, on socials?
I'm publishing. So the documentary episodes, those I'm doing with 100 Latina Birthdays. This is a podcast where we document Latina health from birth to 100 years. So we look into any of their health issues from like 0 to 20, 20 to 40, 40 to 60 right now. Last year, it was the second season, and I documented Latinas and the use of alternative medicine or mushrooms and psilocybin.
Right.
Then Latinas and ADHD. That's when I found out that I had ADHD after talking with a bunch of experts. This year, gosh, I can't talk about it, but
Okay.
yeah, it's all.
I don't want to put you on the spot.
Yeah, they don't allow me to talk about it yet, but now we're documenting Latinas during midlife, no, from 40 to 60, 40 to 60. So a lot of like menopause and stuff like that, right? And these are 30-minute documentary episodes that they're audio on audio. So you can tune in on Spotify, iTunes, I think YouTube too. And so that's one of the things I do. I also work with UCLA LPPI, Latino Policy and Politics Institute. And whenever they have a report that they want to put it in a story format, in a video format, they'll ask me, right? And we've done like the lack of Latina representation in the judiciary system. What else did we do with them? Automation, doing another package on immigration. That's another thing that I'm doing. What else? For Latinos Mexico, this is a news outlet in Mexico. So this organization, it's only digital. It's only on YouTube and social media. But it's really interesting. So a group of journalists from Televisa in Mexico, which Televisa is like the biggest like news outlet in the country, right? And it so happens that a lot of journalists decided that they didn't want to be part of like any censoring. They wanted to just be fully neutral, and they wanted to like research and investigate some politicians and what they were doing. So Televisa wasn't allowing them to do so. So they left Televisa and they start Latinos, which is like Latin US. And this is anchor Carlos Loret de Mola, Claudio Ochoa. They have 2 newscasts and they're highly controversial. They're huge. It's really interesting to see this shift from Televisa owning everyone's eyes in Mexico to now this platform that is on YouTube having millions of views every single night. And it's like everyone talks about what this team is doing. So they contacted me to work on their production whenever they're in the US. So we're going to be we're going to be covering stories from Los Angeles, from New York City at the end of this month, from Chicago, from Miami. And I guess I get to produce like their schedule when they're out here, like scout for locations, look into how their days are going to look like, look for stories. And that's been really interesting. But again, I'm like on this side, right? I'm just producing. And same for Channel 4 News London. It was through a friend, through Luis Chaparro. He's a journalist and he covers like cartels, crime, and he put a good word in for me, and I'm getting gigs from them now. So doing that and many other things that I can't remember right now. Voice acting. I'm a voice actor
Yeah,
too.
tell me about that.
Voice acting. So this happens before I leave Telemundo. I'm like, how am I gonna make ends meet? Telemundo was obviously like something stable. But I saved some money, but I started like before I left, like a year prior, I start taking classes with voice acting professors, teachers. It's a whole world of like, you can dub movies, you can dub series, you can do TV narration, documentary. And yeah, so I was like, okay, like I'm fully bilingual. Let's get some work in this. But because I had full exclusivity with NBC and Telemundo, I couldn't have an agent or work or anything. So until I left Telemundo, I found an agent and I'm doing a bunch of auditions. The majority of the gigs with them are NDA, so I can't really talk about them.
Right.
But it's really fun work.
And that's non-disclosure agreement for
Yeah.
those who aren't in the industry.
Yeah. So, but I love it because I have like a home studio in in my house in a closet, and that's where I do all my auditions. You know, it's fully equipped with like acoustic panels, and I have the mic, and this is all like investments that I did before leaving because I was like, I'm gonna need that like extra income. So yeah, and I'll get auditions from like, I have 2 agents, one in New York, one in Los Angeles, and they'll send me auditions to like cartoons, animation series, video games, commercials too. Commercials is what like pays better because like dubbing and all this is not like that sustainable, but I see it as something like super fun. I'll dedicate like an hour of the day to just like wake up and like, let's send these auditions. And yeah, and that's been interesting.
Wow. So do you identify more as a Mexicana or an American? Can you explain that? Because you're obviously we're in two worlds.
I think I'm 100% Mexican and 100% American. That's how I see it. Yeah.
So how does that influence your vision and your storytelling?
Well, I get to see the two sides of the coin, no? Como I've seen it since I was a kid. Growing up in Yuma, Arizona, the border, I remember going to school with kids that had just crossed the border and their families had just arrived in the US, and they were like, we don't speak English. Like, how do you go about this and that? And then moving to Mexico when I was 10 and going to school with kids who were about to cross to the US, right? They were like, Carmen, you just got here from the US. Like, ¿cómo se dice hola? How do you say hi? How do you say, can I use the restroom? So I remember like I have a really good friend, Miriam. She's in Tennessee. And we were besties when we were 10 years old. And her family crossed to Utah when you know, like when she was 11 years old, I think. And I remember I equipped her. I was like, let me like make this journal for you, and I'm gonna write words you can say, words you can't say. Like when you cross the border, bring this with you. So I don't know, like this just is like a little symbolism of how much I appreciate both cultures, and I understand also, you know, both sides. And that's how I feel too. I really appreciate this country because you do find opportunities here that you don't find, you know, that I can't find in Mexico. I don't think I would have become who I am right now if it wasn't because I'm here, right? And I feel really safe here. And that's something that I don't feel when I'm in Mexico, just being completely honest. And Mexico gives me a lot of identity. It gives me a lot of like who I am, this like nostalgia to like my roots and my culture, and it also shapes a lot of like things I like, the people I admire. So I like being a combination of both. Yeah.
Do you see yourself as a cultural translator from Mexico to United States?
Yeah, I
and
would.
vice versa?
I would. You know, here at this point, so I'm 31 years old. At this point, I've been 10 years in the US, 11 years in Mexico, and then 10 years in the US again. So I'm like, yeah, I really, really understand. One thing I will say is like, because I've been in the US for 10 years now, again, I am way more familiar with politics in the US than in Mexico. I've kind of like not ignored politics in Mexico, but I'm not as connected. I'm not as like articulate when it comes to speaking politics de Mexico, no? Yeah.
Have you ever had editorial pushback on some of your stories?
Absolutely. Just in general, working independent, but also working, you know, for these like for Telemundo or for these outlets, there's always a pushback. There's always a pushback because of many reasons. One, there's always some sort of, in a good or bad way, there's always an agenda, right? There's always a line of like, today, this is the big story. And as much as your story is good, you know, we're not going to have it today because like the donuts in Compton are the priority. Or sometimes you have stories that are too political or that mess. And so currently I'm not really doing politics because I decided to take like a little break from from it. It was a lot after I left the news, but yeah. So working independently, I can talk to politicians, I can talk to whoever I want to, and do stories. But when you're with an outlet, there's always, there's always a party that is either giving money to these big institutions or corporations, and that's going to limit your capacity to speak about these people on air, right? So you're limited to what the writer and the editor has you read on prompter, or what they approve for you to say. And I've seen it over and over again. And I know that's one of the many reasons why many journalists are leaving these big networks and they're going independent. And I think that's the future of journalism. Like the majority of journalists, they're starting to go that route, and they're opening their channels and they're opening their blogs and Substack and Patreons, because people are trusting independent leaders and creators and journalists way more than these big corporations, because they know there isn't, I don't know, there's something about society nowadays, and it has to do with social media, that there's full transparency for everything. You can immediately go and search a politician, an institution, a corporation, a journalist, and see like who they vote for, who they're getting sponsored by, everything. You can see everything. So are people in general, like we're not stupid. So it's really easy to access information nowadays. And if you're going with an outlet that has ties with a political party, then like you're lying to yourself, right?
Right. What advice would you give to young Latinas who want to be journalists?
I would say think outside of the box. It used to be linear. There used to be ways to get into the market, to get into journalism, right? It was like small market. You have to know certain people, Now, we have the ability of our phones. We have the ability of documenting everything on our phones. So just start your own channel. Start posting on your social media. Like create your own, your own platform, and because that's what people is following nowadays. Last year, when I was doing the elections project with El Voto Latino, with Carmen Valencia and Cora Cervantes, that's what I noticed. When you're out on the streets and you're with the mic flag of the corporation you're with, right? You're with Telemundo, you're with CBS, people don't like us anymore. They're like, they'll boo, like whatever. Some people will. They're like, oh my God, Telemundo. The majority, they're a little bit scared and iffy about how the media could be handing out certain information. And when they see you out there with your little independent mic or just your phone, people immediately feel drawn to talking to you. They want to share information. And that's what happened when we were like in this ground coverage. We just had our mics. I had like a little mics, and we were just talking to people, and they were like, who are you with? And we would say, we're independent. They were like, oh yeah, let me tell you everything. Let me tell you what I'm thinking. And that's when we noticed, like in the swap meets of North Las Vegas, we were like, okay, like Latino men, undocumented or citizens, they're gonna vote for Trump. That's what we're seeing. Those, right? So I don't know. My advice for Latinas who want to get into journalism is start right now. Don't wait until you're done with your career. Don't wait until, you look a certain way. Don't wait until you can articulate a certain, no. Like start today. Go get a mic and start documenting what you're seeing in your community, what's interesting to you. And because we have a vast array of documentarians, of journalists, of reporters, creators that document from their points of view, from what they're seeing in their communities, right? So we don't need everyone to report on news. We don't need everyone in Santa Ana. We don't need everyone in Silver Lake covering the same thing. No, we need a voice in every sector of town. So from wherever you are, just start today.
What's next for Carmen Marquez?
I have no clue. I'll just go with the flow. No, I think I want to continue production, like long form production for documentary. this one that I'm doing at the end of August is going to be the first production that I do on camera with an outlet in London. So I'm really excited, prepping for that. I want to maybe at some point open my own channel and yes, be the face of stories that I go out and do, but like in longer format. So I haven't planned for that. I'm currently just picking up projects that I'm really interested in. And maybe once I get a consistent flow of that, I can focus on doing more personal stuff. But yeah, that's.
Would you ever direct a documentary?
Yeah, I would love to. Yeah.
So there's a lot in store.
There's a lot in store.
Okay. Any final thoughts?
No, I think one of the lessons that I've been learning this past year of being independent is that there will always be a lot of, okay, so two things. People are always scared of like, if I go independent, no hay trabajo. It's always like a bad idea to go independent. Like, no. I have encountered the opposite. Like there's a lot of work to do, but you can't be like nitpicky about things, right? Sometimes you just have to accept certain gigs and stuff. But if certain projects, people don't align with you, I've also like learned to say no. Like I'm learning to say like, this is, it doesn't align with my safety. I don't feel safe around this person. Like I think our intuition is really key in these moments. Like, do I feel comfortable around this person? Why am I feeling nervous? Why am I feeling tense around this person? Because as an independent, you're working with different groups of people. And gosh, the reason I left corporate is because I wanted to feel comfortable in my own skin and the way that I spoke and the way that I delivered my reports. There's no reason to pick up gigs where you don't feel like you align with these people, right? So yeah, that's one of my final thoughts.
Okay. All right, guys, we're going to wrap it up here. Nicholas Rosenberg, Carmen Marquez, punching back.
Thank you so much.